Good morning. Well, first of all, can I say what a real pleasure, well, two things. Firstly, it's lovely to come to a conference where I'm not running. Always makes life so much easier. And secondly, it's lovely to be working with Harrap. I mean that genuinely. Harrap have come to some of our conferences and will continue to do so in the future. It was lovely to be asked to do this slot, which is on about ICT Mark and other things, but as you will find very quickly, I can soon get off task when it comes to talking about a passion of mine, which is the use of technology to support learning and teaching in schools. It's also lovely to meet people like Karen and Nikki, who are part of my hinterland. Don't say that. Don't say a long time. My children, who are actually at my school where I was head teacher, so have wonderful stories about how they never got asked anything in assembly ever. Keep saying to me, when are you going to give up, because you weren't much good then. But as long as there are schools out there that need support and help, then we're happy to do it. Can I also make apologies for Gail? Gail Freshwater should have been here today. She's my other fellow director of Gatehouse, but she's not well. She's very poorly. So I've given her the time off. But she sends her love to all those who know her. And Nikki once worked in her school when she was the head. I arrived in Hampshire in 1981 as head of South Farnborough Junior School up in Farnborough. And in 1982, we did a big sponsored event and we had some money left over. So we bought a Commodore PET 64 computer and established it in the school. It had 4K of memory, a green screen about this size, a cassette drive which was twice as big, and 3 programs, one of which was called Big Jane Maths, for a reason I never understood. And it was amazing. It had 2 numbers on the screen, and a plus or a minus, and if you got it right, you got a tick with one sound, and if you got it wrong, you got a cross with another. And I instantly saw how we were going to revolutionise the maths curriculum overnight. Little did I know in 1982 that 30 years later what we could do with technology, as Rachel has exemplified already today. Then we got a BBC-B, which interestingly every school in the country in 1983 was offered a half-price computer, and that was funded not by the Department for Education but by DTI, which is interesting. It was industry that saw the need to put computers in schools, not education. It hasn't changed much, no. I have to be honest. And every Friday afternoon in my school we abandoned what curriculum we had, and Year 5 and Year 6, are vertically grouped anyway, split up, and they did a whole range of subjects that were particular enthusiasms of the teachers. And we also brought other people in. So I thought, we'll do a computer club. No one will bother to come. And I got 24 children signed up, and I had 1 Commodore PET and 1 BBC-B. And I thought, this isn't going to work, really. At that time in Farnborough, 60% of families had a computer in their house because of the very nature of the work that they did at the DRA. So I just put out a plea. And in came fathers, uncles, grandfathers, and we set up, and time we finished with 9 computers, all different. Every one was different. Names that have long since disappeared. But we had a Sinclair, and we had a Tandy. And the thing that impressed me the most was that the children didn't care what it was. They knew, like you do if you get a new car, that somewhere there's a switch which does the windscreen wipers. You know it's there, it's just a case of finding it. And they went from one machine to the other and just did whatever it was that they were doing. And I thought, wow, if only we could harness this technology and use it to support teaching and learning, what a wonderful thing that would be. And that was the start of my journey. And in 1987, I was appointed primary IT advisor for the whole of Hampshire, which at that time had 600 primary schools. And I really wrote to them and said, I hope to come and see you sometime. It was a fatuous statement. There's no way I was ever going to visit 600 primary schools. Fortunately, Southampton and Portsmouth saw sense and went off and became unitary authorities, so we were only left with 450. But in 1988, again through industry, Hampshire was able to appoint 28 full-time teacher advisors for information technology. And I had a primary team with Tony Cook, who is still a Gatehouse person, Alan Rothwell and Stella Kenny, who many of you will remember, who is now terrorising Houston. And that was the primary team. And John Woolard, whom you are going to see this afternoon, I appointed as a special needs IT advisor in 1988. And it's all come round. It's lovely. I really do love meeting people from the past. A, because it means I'm still alive, but also it means that, you know, and to see how they've caught up and done. So it'd be lovely to see John this afternoon. And if I have a passion, it's a serious passion, that I believe that if the technology is not helping children learn and not helping teachers teach, we have to question why we're using it. And I welcome the computing curriculum. I have no problem with the curriculum at all. If you were doing, as a primary school, control technology, logo and data handling properly, and that's the right word, properly, you were doing 85% of the current computing curriculum. And all the stuff about coding I love. I have no problem with that at all. Absolutely none. When I was going, we used to have RSA courses, didn't we?
Yes, that's right.
People used to actually get qualifications for doing IT. We talked about logo, which I love. I love, you know, watching children cotton onto a mathematical principle that they haven't been able to do in any other way. It's fascinating. And I always used to say, if you do country dance, you don't do country dancing these days, do you? Yeah. You do, right. Well, if you do country dancing well, I know you do at Frion. Yes, I know you do everything at Frion. Frion is a gatehouse school. That's a very special thing to be, yeah, as you will learn. But seriously, if you're doing country dancing, you're doing logo. You can't do country dancing without procedures. Forwards, backwards, left, right. It's a process. Country dancing is exactly what you were saying. It's an algorithm. And we were doing that way back when. And we also had on the BBC computer a thing called an XMA board, where you could actually have ins, out gates, and we used to do loads of... So it's not new, but it's been forgotten. And Ofsted, technically, whenever they looked at IT in a school, if they could put the letters in the right order, would always have written down before they got to the school that control technology was poor, because it always was. On the rare occasions where it wasn't, they just crossed that out and wrote something else. And we haven't done control technology very well. So this is focusing on a thing that many of our young children find fascinating and really help. So that's my background. I retired in 2003 because I could, and a year later Tony retired, and Gail was the head teacher in Farnborough, in Basingstoke, and had enough of that. So we founded Gatehouse 2004. Last year, amazingly to us, we had our 10th anniversary. And if you have a moment, go on our website. I want you to go on our website anyway, because it's great. But to go on there, we have a timeline, which actually is a history of IT over the 10 years from 2004 to 2005. I have to warn, it's going to be taken down at the end of this term, because we can't keep on saying we're only 10 years old, because now we're 11. But that development and the whole principle and ethos of Gatehouse was to go into schools and support what teachers were doing and what head teachers were doing. We've all been head teachers. We've all been in that position of senior management. Although the job has changed beyond all recognition. I mean, when I was the head in 1973 in Tunbridge Wells, nobody could come into my school and tell me what to do. They could come and advise, and I could ignore it. Same in Hampshire. People could come in. We didn't ignore their advice, because we had some really, really good people who came in and helped us. But I didn't have to do it. And things have changed. The whole process has changed. Hampshire was one of the 9 authorities that got the contract to do the strategic leadership training in IT nationally. And we went all over. You remember? Yeah, you did it. Yeah, and survived. Yeah, to be honest, how many of you remember NOF? Yeah, New Opportunities Funding. Actually, we did it reasonably well in Hampshire, considering. But that would have been so much more effective if we'd done SLICT first. Because where NOF failed was because senior management didn't understand it, didn't want to know about it. And if you're a head teacher, I don't want you necessarily to do the in fact in some cases I'd much rather you didn't get anywhere near it, but to understand the principles of what we're trying to do with information technology is vital. And the ICT Mark is pivotal to that. The ICT Mark is now 7 years old, and before it there was a thing called NACE Mark. I'll talk separately about NACE in a moment. The ICT Mark is a qualification. It's like any of these marks, up to a point. It has 6 elements. First one is strategic leadership. And we focus on headship, governance. You talked about governance responsibility. That's grown out of all recognition. And is a real worry for some governing bodies. Not just the budgeting of IT, which is a massive thing, but the e-safety things that you were saying. But about an IT team and sustainability. The whole of the ICT Mark process is about sustainability of IT in your school. In the 1980s, if the IT coordinator left a primary school, it died. Usually. All the computers would be put back in the cupboards if ever they came out. It just finished. Can't have that these days. Can't do that. You wouldn't do that in maths or English, so why should you do it in IT? The second one is curriculum planning, and we've had plenty of examples of how to do that. We believe very passionately in a progression of skills. A progression of skills in IT right across. And we wrote a document many years ago that we have now completely updated so that it contains every element of computing in it as well. And it's levelled, I'm afraid, because I can't be doing with this nonsense about, we just have to throw levelling out the window. But this difference is it's not national curriculum level, it's Gatehouse level, so it's real. And it makes sense. And it simply says if you're doing this word processing at level 2, then it's higher at level 1 and lower than level 3. All right? You have a progression to use within the curriculum planning that you have. Now this document, I'm going to ink to copy it, but if you just contact me, email, they've got lots of ways of contacting us, we'll send you an electronic copy. Gail has also updated her early years document, she's an early years specialist, to include a whole range of new things as well. So both of those are, just send me an email and we'll send you an electronic copy for nothing. Once you're a Gatehouse school, everything is free, well not quite. So that's the curriculum planning. Teaching and learning is passionate with me. You talked about it. Your teachers threw their hands up. If we'd said to people years ago, you're going to have to teach control technology at year 6. I was talking to a teacher the other day who's just been moved from year 1 to year 6. Sort of career move you'd dream of. And she actually said, I said, how are you getting on? She said, well, first of all, the children seem to do things without me asking them to. Secondly, I'm not too sure about the science curriculum. Well, none of us have been too sure about the science curriculum. But the third thing is she said, I can't do the IT at all. I said, yeah, but you've got children in your class who can, so let's start using them. Let's start spreading that, using that peer-to-peer process. And they have skills. I mean, it's fascinating. We used to tell people at reception to teach mouse skills. First thing we did, teach the children how to use a mouse. Then we stopped doing it because they all had computers at home and they knew it. Now they're coming in at 4 and they're doing this. So we're having to go back to teach mouse skills again because it's a sort of circular process. So teaching and learning is vital. The fourth one is assessment. It's my speciality. I love assessment. Because we need to assess the progress of children. You have to write a report still, don't you, on IT. Some of the reports I've read wouldn't have looked out of place in a fairy book. Really wouldn't. Anecdotal, to put it mildly. Has used a word processor. Great. I read one, speaks well when using a computer. I said to the person who wrote it, I said, what on earth does that mean? And she said, well, you see, he doesn't talk to children normally, but when he's sitting next to a child at a computer, he talks to them. So I said, oh, that's brilliant social skills. Not all to do with IT skill, but absolutely. I said, we need to do something a bit more. We need to be able to say they're at whatever level you're like. We used to be able to say they're at national level. Well, if we don't have levels, how can we say that? How on earth is Ofsted going to judge your school if you don't have any criteria against which to judge them? So that's the assessment and the skills process. Professional development, vital. Absolutely essential. And then the last one, which we regard as the least important of the 6, but without it you can't do it, and I'm at a Harrap conference, so I must make sure I make this right, is resources. And you look at the resources that are out there, fantastic. The opportunities that we have. I'm going to show you a film at the end which will show you how 3-year-olds can make use of IT resources to actually learn and to develop. Now the ICT Mark process is very straightforward. You can, if you want, join the process and do it without ever doing the ICT Mark. We also offer, and you've got details in the pack, an ICT health check in your school. The other thing that I say is if you get us in, you've got to be prepared to smile and laugh, because we don't do things. Gosh, I go into some schools and I think, if I was a child, would I want to be in this environment? And we have a lot of fun as well, because quite frankly I haven't got many years left, so I just enjoy everything I've got. And when we come in, we can do a health check. We're just against the 6 elements, and we can write you a report for governors against the 6 elements. And that's very important to us. The ICT Mark process itself is sponsored by NACE. You've got all the information that you want in there. We've got one ICT Mark school here that's renewing for the, what, 17th time or something?
I think the process is important to me.
Yes, it is.
Well, not necessarily the getting.
That's right.
The process.
Could you say that very loudly? That is vital. It is the process that is important. Yes, of course, it's nice to get something to put up on the wall. But what you're actually doing is spending quality time with someone talking about the whole process. And we do support visits and we do assessment visits. And if you are a support person for ICT Mark, you can't assess, which makes sense, which is why Gail and I always do it in partnership. And that works very well. Gatehouse is the leading ICT Mark provider in the whole country by a mile. We have just done over 250 schools, including international schools. We have done severe special schools, secondary. We've done 3 to 19 independent. We've virtually done everything. And that to me is what keeps me going, because it's fascinating to go into some of these schools. I was in a school in Broughton for 18 to 25-year-olds where their sole purpose was to keep them out of a mental institution by the time they left at 25. And they'd only had one failure. And to be in an environment like that, where IT was enabling some of those young people to come to grips with a whole range of social things, let alone educational, is humbling, because you just, well, I couldn't do it. As a teacher, I couldn't do it. And then the next day you're in an independent girls' school where they all get A stars just for turning up. You know, the head actually put in her office a statement that most of these girls could achieve A stars by reading books. They don't need teachers for that. What they need teachers for is all the other things in life that they have to cope with, and social, and that was brilliant. Because that's saying, yeah, we know you've got the intelligence, but what are you going to do with it? How are you going to use it? So the ICT Mark is fundamental to me, and we've got a huge number in Hampshire. We'd like to increase that number. All the processes for getting in touch with us about this are in your pack. Please do so. We'd love to come and work in your school. E-safety is very much a part of the ICT Mark. When we rewrote it last year, it became a fundamental issue. We have a guy called Paul Hay who does our e-safety. You've had him at South Farnborough Infants, haven't you? And he wrote the COPS material when he worked for Microsoft. It's about the only time you'll ever hear me say the word Microsoft, as an ex-Acorn addict. He just comes into your school and do whatever you want. Works with the children, works with the parents, works with the governors, works with the community, and works with you. You've got all his details there. What happens is he works through Gatehouse for Hampshire schools. He does the work, you pay us, we pay him. Straightforward. Just don't mention purchase order numbers at the moment. Yes, for those of you who don't know, Hampshire now have to have purchase orders for everything. Trying to get them out of schools before you ever go in, let alone after, is a minor miracle, and has trebled the amount of office time that we have to spend doing it. The last thing I want to mention in brief before I just show a quick video is Third Millennium. Third Millennium originally was only for schools that already had the ICT Mark as a process. Now it's been opened up to any school that think they're good. And it involves 2 videos. A 5-minute video, and you'll see a sample in a moment, of what you're doing in IT to support learning. And then that's backed up by a 10-minute video where the teachers explain how they achieve what they achieved in the 5-minute video. The 5-minute video is on the NACE website. NACE is the only national organisation left now for IT since the sad demise of Bechta. It's the only place where you can actually go and find resources. Being a member of NACE as a school is no bad thing. We've got all the data there. I'm not here to sell it for them. I'm just saying it's the only place that you've got, really. And all the videos are available. The 5-minute videos are available free. But if you want the 10-minute videos, you have to become a member and to see them. And Gail is a leading judge for that. And it's all done online. Doesn't require a portfolio. One other thing I can say, that we always give Gatehouse schools a discount, because we feel if they've stuck with us this long, they need all the help they can get, really. And we're going to do the same for Harrap schools. Any school that is a Harrap school that wants to work with us will get a discount on the costs. Not of the ICT Mark, because that's the final bit, because that's a set price, or the third millennium, but of our support. And Paul's reasonable anyway. So all the prices are in there. Can we have the video? Let's see. This is from a nursery school in Wales, you'll be pleased to hear.
Hello and welcome to Cogan Nursery School. Technology is becoming an integral part of our lives, and indeed will no doubt be an essential tool for the future children who play behind these doors. Embracing this future requires learning and teaching to recognise the networked and technology-rich nature of the world we live in, and respond by using it to enhance the experiences we offer on a daily basis.
Having the resources available is not enough. They have to be accompanied by a deep understanding of how ICT is not only relevant to enhancing children's play, but also how it promotes learning and has a positive impact on the standards our children achieve.
Ha ha, cowboy! You can't catch me!
I'll catch you, naughty.
What you gonna do? Jump on your horse or something?
I think what's brilliant is just knowing what's happening on a daily basis. I've got a son who, every time I pick him up from nursery, I ask him what he's done, and his answer is always, I don't know, which just isn't true, because when you go on Twitter you can see a wealth of photographs. And I know when my son wrote his name for the first time with the E the right way around, properly in the sand on Tenby Beach, I was able to tweet that to nursery, and it's celebrated in school.
At the party, do you think you can find the letters on the keyboard?
Using QR codes can enhance displays. When up high, practitioners are able to scan them or find a link to develop the learning further. When down low, the children can access them independently with activities that relate to the particular display. Augmented reality allows us to share instructions for particular activities with the children.
We use newsstream, emails and text to effectively communicate with the parents. I found it particularly useful reaching parents that we found difficult to reach in the past.
Not only has Skype and FaceTime allowed our children to communicate with their schools across the world, but as teachers we've been able to host parent evenings on Skype and with parents who are overseas.
So I noticed on inserts that Jade just hasn't quite achieved level 1, so maybe we should do...
Should we do pattern? And I tell you what he's interested in. He's interested in the dinosaurs.
Yes,
so what if
okay.
we bring something that he's interested in?
Yes, you'll like that.
Okay.
So, there we have it. Just some of the third millennium learning at Cogan Nursery School.
Now, aren't you glad that nursery school isn't on your doorstep? Because when those children move into early years, they are going to have expectations. Now that is an extreme example. It's a lovely example, and it's 18 months old already. So goodness knows what they're doing today in terms of IT. But what fascinates me about it, and I've done a lot of work in school in Wales, is that they actually believe that the curriculum is in charge of what they're doing. And they put everything into that process. And what you saw there was that all the time it was being used practically to involve the children in what they were doing. I've been in schools where they've used little iPads in reception for doing all their reports on the children. They just take a photograph and type a couple of words, and that becomes the ongoing reporting process on the children that they can do. It comes from special schools. A lot of special schools, the children have no outcomes. They are not able to provide outcomes, so they video them. And they send a CD of that video or whatever back to the parents at the end of it. So that that business about, oh, I didn't do anything today, suddenly, well, actually you did. And here's the proof, and let's see it. I could talk for hours, as you probably realise. That's enough, it's time to move on. But if you want to get in touch with us and to use us, you've got all the information there. We'd love to work with you. We enjoy working in schools and we enjoy meeting people. And thank you very much for your time.